outlandish comments like that to the media.
If I may, one more.
Yes, Lindsay.
Go back to the plane crash for just 1 second.
You're interrupting your colleague, but sure.
Sorry, I thought you called on me.
I called on Lindsay.
The president this morning said the black.
Lindsay. Lindsay, go ahead. Lindsay, go ahead. Thank you.
Days the CIA actually revealed.
Welcome back to the views from Stoic Skills Eye. Hope you're all doing well no matter where you're tuning in from. The Trump administration is making waves again, and things are already heating up in this explosive clip. White House press Secretary Karoline Leavitt takes the stage and completely shuts down Kaitlan Collins. During the press briefing, let's jump in and watch Karoline Leavitt.
And on what happened on Friday night, the administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting on.
So you're confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, those prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed?
We will win in court. Country and America is back. Christian Daycock.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House, on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing to doing that.
Kaitlan and watch Karoline leave Kaitlan absolutely speechless. Had your gold. Ken Collins thought she had a gotcha moment, but Karoline Leavitt shut her down in no time. Flat. Of course, the president can fire people in the executive branch. That's literally his job, and Karoline even slammed them with a Supreme Court case. For extra burn, then came the egg price question. Too funny they act like inflation just showed up last week, but Karoline reminded them that Biden's policies were tanking the economy long before Trump even came into the picture. Oh, and maybe mass killing millions of.
Caroline, there are more than 150,000 disabled Americans who are working today. The president talked a lot yesterday about hiring the best and the brightest to work in the federal government. Safety aside, does he believe that disabled people do have a place to work in the federal government? And does he also support the current protections for disabled people working in the private sector as well.
The president has made it very clear that this is a common sense solution to solving some of the problems that we have seen at the Federal Aviation Administration and also when it comes to many of the federal agencies across our government. People should not be hired based on their disabilities, based on their skin color, their gender, their race. None of that matters. What matters to this president and this administration is how well you can do your job, and the American people agree with that sentiment. So it's about competence, skill, and merit. And so the president is focused on ensuring that the most competent individuals, the best and the brightest in this country, are in positions in this federal government, especially when it comes to public safety. Can't overemphasize the importance of those jobs.
And then he uncorked that expletive to insult a former cabinet officer. It was the same expletive that I saw him use in the East Room in 2020 when he famously held up the Trump acquitted headline. My question is, if you could shed any light for us on how the president perceives his use of public profanity, which is a practice that certainly sets him apart from all of his predecessors. Does he regard it as an effective communications device, part of his appeal, or is it something that he lapses into inadvertently, perhaps in times of frustration and later regrets?
I think one of the things that the American people love most about this president is that he often says what they are thinking, but sometimes lack the courage to say themselves. And I think yesterday at this podium, you heard President Trump express great frustration, perhaps even anger, with the previous administration's policies, many of which have led to the crises that our country is currently facing and that this president is focused on fixing. Thank you guys very much. Have a great
Why impose this pause with so little notice? Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they are about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time?
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know, a regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. You know, just during this pause, DOJ and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
And so this doesn't affect
Chickens wasn't the smartest move. Karoline dropped some hard facts and they've got absolutely nothing left. Let's keep watching. This is priceless. The press is irate over President Trump's plan to replace individuals who were hired solely due to meeting diversity quotas with candidates who are genuinely qualified for the job. They just can't seem to admit that qualifications should always take precedence over race or gender. But Karoline Leavitt doesn't hold back. She calmly cuts through the nonsense, underlining a simple, fair, and completely logical argument: jobs should always go to the most qualified individuals, period. There's no room for a debate about that. It's basic common sense, and yet somehow this is the issue. The press just can't seem to wrap their heads around. Then the conversation shifts to a completely ridiculous controversy over profanity of all things. The media is up in arms about Trump's use of a few strong words that are, frankly, no worse than what any average American might say when frustrated with the state of the nation. But because this is Trump, everything becomes a scandal. Karoline L. expertly dismantles their concerns, pointing out that Trump is just vocalizing exactly what the American people feel. That's why his supporters have always connected with him on such a deep level, because he tells the truth no matter how uncomfortable it might be. He's not speaking for the elites or the out-of-touch media. He's speaking for the people, and that's why the mainstream press can't comprehend why his popularity remained so high even after all these years. Now let's talk about the spending freeze. This moment had me in stitches. The media's outrage is almost comical. Trump takes a stand and stops taxpayer dollars from being used to fund condoms in Gaza, and they completely lose it. Might sound outlandish, but it's true. The press wants to focus on trampling over the important issues, but Karoline Leavitt, it doesn't hold back. She lays it all out, plainly and factually, stripping away any.
And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets. It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House.
Argument the press could must at the end of the day. They're left speechless with nothing to say that could change the truth that they are completely out of touch with the concerns of everyday Americans. And just when you think it can't get any better, Karoline is about to drop a statement that is guaranteed to ruffle a few feathers amongst the woke mainstream media. It's the moment they won't see coming, and the one they'll not want to hear. Let's keep watching to see her take down anyone who dares to challenge the undeniable truth. Karoline just dropped a bomb. The White House press room will now officially open its doors to independent journalists and podcasters. This game-changing move comes at a time when the mainstream media's credibility is plummeting. More and more people are steering clear of corporate outlets and seeking real, unfiltered news online. Now these paid-off media professionals are finally getting a taste of losing control, and it's a sight to be behold. It's amazing to witness this shift in the media landscape. Cape, what do you think? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.